We are going to talk about energy. So, we first talked about the law of conservation of mass, and now we are going to talk about energy. It goes with the reactions, and you need to know about it for like the laws of conservation. Energy also has one. So, we are going to take notes on page 31 right now, and we're going to review that the law of conservation of mass says that the mass of the reactants is equal to the mass of the products. So, now when we talk about energy, they have some of the same rules. So, energy is the ability of an object to cause change. It can also be thought of as stored energy, or it has the potential to do something. So, there are many types of energy, and I know in a few of my other classes, people have already talked about different kinds of energy. One that I know someone brought up before was radiant or light energy, which is energy from the electromagnetic spectrum. So colors and like different colors of lights have different energy. There's also heat or thermal energy, which is due to temperature. So like UV energy UV rays from the sun is a different kind of energy, but the heat that's produced is a type of energy. Then there's also sound energy, nuclear energy that is stored in the nuclei of atoms. There's elastic energy. There's chemical energy, electrical energy, and mechanical energy. So the nuclear energy would be things that are stored, or like the potential energy that is stored in the nuclei of atoms. So this would be like power plants, nuclear plants. They harness the power from the nuclei of atoms. So we talked about what an atom is. Different elements are made up of atoms. Different things are made up of atoms. Then there's heat or thermal energy, which is due to temperature. There's radiant or light energy, which is electromagnetic spectrum. So heat, thermal, and radiant light is what solar power uses. So when we think of you can use solar power to like create energy, that's what those two are. Chemical energy is stored in molecules. So remember, molecules have bonds because there's two or more atoms or elements chemically combined. So you can break them apart and release energy. There's electrical energy, which is movement of electrons. That's in an atom. But electrical energy would be things like our lights and electric cars. And then there's mechanical energy, which is related to motion or position. So you'll learn about that in physics. Next, we're getting to the law of conservation of energy. So we already talked about the law of conservation of mass. So it's pretty much the same law or principle, but now about energy. So energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only be transformed from one form to another. So when energy cannot be created or destroyed, we can't just take it out of nowhere. It has to come from somewhere. So you might be able to take it from electrical, the movement of electrons, and turn it into chemical energy. I mean, that's not a great example. I'm not perfect in energy, but we're saying that it can go from one type to another. And again, remember that energy cannot be created or destroyed, or sorry, a law means that something cannot be broken. So humans obviously can break laws, but in the science world, it's something that cannot be broken. It has to always be there, and you can't just change it. And then with the law of conservation of energy, energy in a system is constant. So it's unchanging. Remember that stuff that we started with is equal to the stuff that we end with. The same is with energy. So energy and mass both have starting and ending units that should be the same, or amounts, sorry. So let's take a look at what we've already learned about. So summarizing and taking stock of what we've already done. Which of our ideas about matter and energy seem important to record and remember as we continue to work through questions and food? So we're going to take a look at food and kind of figure out what it's made out of. But we need to remember that energy and matter are important. So when we're thinking about matter and energy, can we all agree that we get matter from food? Like you get stuff from food? Yes. And that food is made up of matter? Yes. Remember, matter is anything that has mass or takes up space. And then what about energy? Does that come from food? In the beginning of this unit, the question of the day, I asked you, why do we eat? And a lot of you guys said to get nutrients, get energy. So that is true. So now we're going to first look at the matter part of our question about food, but we'll talk a little bit about energy along the way. So we will learn a few things about energy. So what exactly is our food? Obviously, it's not all a fish. It's not all a carrot. And yes, it's made up of matter. It has mass and takes up space. but we want to know what it's made up of. What is the mass that's there? Yes, you could say it's made up of atoms and elements, but we want to know what those make up. So what do we eat? We're going to take a look at food that we would eat. So a typical breakfast, a typical lunch, and a typical dinner, and then you guys get to pick some snacks that you would like to eat. So I did an example for you guys. I think it's just easier for this activity if I give you an example, and then we're going to kind of, if you want to change it, you can. So we're going to take a look at what is in the food that we eat. What is it made of? So we are going to do an activity called Calorie King. It's going to help us figure out what is in the food we eat. So I have this linked in our Google Classroom, and on your day in the life paper, we're going to list out each food and then list the top 4 substances in terms of amount that it contains. Then we're going to list the number of grams of each substance. And then we're going to create a whole list of the substances consumed and calculate the total grams of each and determine the percentage. So I do this with you guys. Again, like I said, if you want to erase it and do your own foods, you can, but I think it's just going to be easier to at least do the first one with me. So we're going to look for the Calorie King tracking sheet activity. If you did not number your pages, you probably should. We're on page 38. So there, I'm going to number the pages. So you should write it down also so that you know where we're going. So I did fill in a few of the foods. And like I said, if you want to do something else, you can. So directions, what are we doing? For each of the items identified by the class or by me as consumed in a typical day, we're going to list 1, the top 4 substances it contains, and then number 2, the amount of each in grams. So sometimes it'll say a milligram. 1 milligram equals 0.0001 grams contained in that item. If a type of substance is broken down into subcategories, we just need to list the total for the overall category. So example would be total fat. So we'll go through this together. I listed breakfast items as banana, 2% milk, and cinnamon toast crunch. We're going to do the banana and 2% milk together. And then if you would like to choose something else or you eat a different kind of cereal, you can switch it out. So we go into the Calorie King. We type in banana because that's our first item. We search it. And then it'll come up with a whole bunch of different brands. We're just going to have the banana raw at the top, fresh fruit, not any of the puddings or anything else. It tells us the calories. We don't want that. We want to look at what it's made up of. So we're going to ignore how many calories and all that is and scroll down to the nutrition facts. So again, calories are at the top, and then it lists total fat, cholesterol, sodium, total carbohydrates, protein, calcium, all that kind of stuff. So we want to look for the biggest number in grams. So you just scroll down and you see which one has the highest whole number. If you look at potassium, it says that it has 358 milligrams. So milligrams, remember, we have to move that decimal over 3 spots. So it would go 0.3 milligrams. So that's not the biggest. So anything with an mg is actually smaller than a g for grams. So the total carbohydrates in grams would be 22.8 grams, and I believe that that is our biggest number. So we're going to write that down in our banana. So we're writing down our total carbohydrates under the top 4 substances it contains. And then on the side there, it said 22.8 grams, so that's what you want to write, and the amount in grams, 22.8. And we want the next biggest whole number. And remember, we want it to say grams, not milligrams. So looking at the list on the left-hand side, the next biggest one would be protein. I'm just scrolling to make sure. Remember, we want it in grams, not milligrams. So dietary fiber, you might think is the next biggest one, but remember that's under total carbohydrates. So we already have that accounted for. So protein would be the next biggest one. So it would be 1.1 grams. Then we need 2 more. So our next largest number, so everything left is in milligrams. So our biggest number next in milligrams would be potassium, and that would be 0.358 grams because it's listed in milligrams. You need to move the decimal over 3 spots. And then I'm just checking to make sure, but the last one that it's made up of is vitamin A. That's our next biggest whole number at 65 milligrams. So again, we're going to have to move the decimal when we write it out. So vitamin A at 0.065 grams. So that is how you complete it. If you would like to do your own, instead of the 2% milk and cinnamon toast crunch that I listed, you may. I am going to go ahead and do the 2% milk with you. So you go to the search bar again. I'm writing in 2% milk. You do need to be specific so that it comes up with exactly what you want. So I'm looking for just normal 2% milk, not scrambled eggs, just reduced fat 2% milk. Again, you scroll down to the nutrition facts. You don't need those calories or anything. And remember, we're looking for the biggest whole number in grams. So again, not those milligrams, we're looking for grams. So total fat's 4.8, sodium's listed in milligrams, cholesterol's in milligrams, carbs is 12.3. So far that's our biggest number. We got protein in at 8.1, so that's smaller than 12. So we're going to start with total carbohydrates again, was 12.3 because it's our biggest whole number in grams. And then we saw, or I found that protein had a large whole number at 8.1. So that will go next. It's smaller than 12. The next one looks like it's going to be those, or sorry, that total fat. At the top, it had 4.8, and it's still in grams. And then the last one, it looks like it's going to be vitamin A again. It's all the way up at 400, where there's a 300 and a 200, but those are still less than 400. And then we need to move the decimal over because it is in milligrams. So it would be 0.464 grams. So again, if you would like to continue with Cinnamon Toast Crunch, you can, or you can pick whatever cereal or whatever else you would have for breakfast. I am going to skip down to lunch just so that we can get our examples going. So for lunch, I chose nachos with beef, chocolate milk, and an apple. Again, after the nachos with beef, if you would like to change to something that you would eat, you may. So I type in nachos, and I already saw that nachos with beef is an option, so I'm just going to click that. Just try and get something that's similar to what you would have. I scroll down to the nutrition facts. I can skip the calories. And again, I'm just searching for my largest number in grams. So not milligrams, grams. So I see that total fat's at 25, total carbs is 37. I got 15 grams of protein. So my biggest number is, again, the total carbohydrates. And that was at 37. The next largest number in grams is total fat at 25. The next largest in grams is protein with 15. And then I did have to move down into milligrams, but the next largest one was the sodium with 0.9. Remember, you move the decimal over 3 spots. So now you would continue on, and I just want to show you what I did for dinner and snacks, and then I can show you how to do the substances. So you're going to flip over to page 39. I did give you barbecue wings, fries, and Sprite for dinner. Again, you can change it if you want, or you can go with what I gave you. In snacks, I put Flamin' Hot Cheetos, and then I left a spot open for you because I thought it'd be fun for you guys to do at least one snack on your own. So I'm going to show you how to do the summary. So it goes into column A, so that's our substances, so what it's made out of. We're going to list all the different substances that we found in our daily food. So that would be everything that we wrote in those categories, those top 4 things that it's made up of. We wrote down a lot of total carbohydrates. We wrote down protein. We wrote down fat. And then you could write things like potassium from the banana, vitamin A was in our banana and our milk, or even sodium from our nachos. And then in column B, you're going to determine the total amount in grams for each substance in the food for this typical day. So you're going to need to take the total carbohydrates and you need to add them all up from every single thing you ate that had total carbs. So that would be taking the total carbohydrates from the banana, the total carbohydrates from the milk, total carbohydrates from the nachos, and adding them all up. And then if you continued, obviously you'd have to keep adding them. So we would be taking total carbohydrates, 22.8 from the banana, plus 12.3 from the 2% milk plus 37 from the nachos. And then we write it down in box B, total for the day and total carbohydrates. So we added those all up and I got 72.1. And then we do the same thing for total fat and protein. So again, you look at the total fat from the banana, the milk, the nachos, everything you did. So we're going to take the total fat, there was none in the banana, which is awesome. But then if you go to 2% milk, total fat was 4.8. And then the nachos with beef, total fat was 25. So you add those two together, 25 plus 4.8, and we get 29.8. And then we are going to add up all the protein. So there was protein in the banana. There was 1.1 grams of protein. There was also protein in the 2% milk. There was 8.1. And then there was also protein in the nachos at 15. So you add those three up and we get 24.2. So once you have all of your things, so if you have like potassium, vitamin A, and you fill out all the boxes, then we're going to take the total in grams of all the substances. So we're going to take all of column B and add them all up together. So we're going to take the 72.1 plus the 29.8 plus the 24.2, and we get letter C, which ends up being 126.1. And then the last thing we need to do is in column D, we're going to calculate the percent of the total grams from box C made up by each substance. So in order to do this, we're going to take the unit from column B divided by our total in box C, times it by 100, and it'll give us the percentage. So again, we're going to take whatever it is in B. So if we're looking at total carbohydrates, we're going to take B divided by our total in C, push equals, you're going to get a number. So once you push equals, then you're going to multiply by 100. So we'll do an example together. I'll write it out for you. So let's do our total carbohydrates as an example. We're going to take the 72.1 grams that you added up in your total day. We're going to divide it by our total, box C, of 126.1 grams. So I put it in the calculator, it equals 0.5717. And then remember, once you push equals, you're going to multiply it by 100. Or you can move the decimal spot over 2 spaces for the 2 zeros, whichever way is easier for you. And it gives us 57.2. So out of the banana, the milk, and the nachos I ate, 57.2% of my daily intake was already carbohydrates. So that's a lot of carbs already in just my 3 items. So hopefully yours is going to be more evened out, but we're going to take a look and see what all we consume. And then you do have some questions on page 40 that you need to answer once you're done with that.